ahead and get started. It is November 12th, 2024. This is our 5 o'clock Board of Education meeting. We're going to begin by indicating who's here. Julie, do you have anything in your mouth right now?
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn.
Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hubbard.
Ben Horsley.
And Nicole McDermott. All right, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Don, Justin, and Chris for our construction update. Where's Don? Oh,
I'll be here this evening.
okay. All right, Justin and Chris, thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. I believe we're doing Truman first. Is that correct, Don?
Oh, if we are, then I better come.
That's how it's set up on your presentation.
Perfect. I stand corrected, Board President. I'll be down here. Several weeks ago, we sent just a quick email communication to you talking through Truman Elementary, showing you some of the current conditions, timelines, and where we're headed for completion on this very important project. And what we can say at this stage as we look at the HVAC upgrade assignments, everything that's been assigned to a Granite District shop is ahead of schedule. So we're very excited, and we'll be ready in advance for the proposed move from the principal to occur on, I think November 20 is the big day where we're going to have a lot of staff over there moving a lot of furniture. And so when the kids come back from Thanksgiving recess, they'll all be in the building and operating smoothly.
Hey, Don, will you let us know in case we can come and help too?
You're always welcome to, but it's going to happen so fast you won't believe it. We'll probably complete that move from the hard labor perspective in about 4 hours.
Maybe it could be one of those deals where you like offer to do the dishes when they're already done and you get credit, but you don't have to do any of it.
Yes, if you wanted to show up at 2 p.m., I'm sure that the dishwashing will be completed.
Now, Dawn, it's important. I want people to realize, too, as we've had teachers relocate and have to go in and out of these reloads and everything, that we are providing subs, kind of for them. And I just want to make sure people understand this has been hard enough on the Truman community. I was at a meeting there just a little bit ago, and they're so grateful that it's that it's nearly done.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just want to make mention that we are trying to take care of that faculty and staff as best we can.
We're trying to take the classroom duties off of them to allow them a chance to move, to help supervise those that are doing the heavy lifting where they need things placed, etc. So we're trying to provide as much freedom from that day's duties as possible to make the move as easy as it can be. But to be fair and to recognize what Board Member Winder is saying, there's always a challenge when you move that you're going to set up, you're going to make it yours again, and that takes extra time. So we're very appreciative of their efforts. And to highlight kind of what they're moving back into, it does feel completely different as a school. The aesthetics have changed, the operations have changed. And so you can see by the imagery, it's a refreshed school. It's a new central plant. It has a lot of efficacy into the future, should provide a lot more comfort, better air circulation, etc. And to that point, we spoke to a potential change order that we're recommending, which is to maximize the ESSER funds that are available. Approved change order number 7, which, again, it's a very functional system now. This is kind of the whipped cream and cherry on top functionality associated with the project, adding some more leaf air systems in the restrooms and in the hallways just to improve that circulation, just to take that extra little bit of air out, increase the circulation. It was as part of the original design, but for cost considerations, we value engineered it at the beginning in hopes that we could bring it back to you later. And we're fortunate that we have the funding available in ESSER to do that, and still recommend that this relief air addition be done. in colloquial terms, I'd like to say we're going to turn it from a Chevy into the Cadillac. It's very functional, serves its purpose, but we think this really is the best way to go, and thankful that we have the federal funding to finish that off.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Please.
This has nothing to do with anything other than, I just really am curious as why did they have lockers?
Yeah, this is something that you do see in a lot of new elementaries now, that the locker part of an elementary provides, instead of the old cubbies and coat hooks, it provides a slightly more secure point of storage, but just as importantly, from an integrated pest management problem, it starts to eliminate pests crawling from one cubby to the next, to the next, to the next. And so there are probably, I would say, a handful of reasons why designers are thinking about the half locker solution in elementaries these days, partly from a neatness perspective, but also from oddly a pest management side. Yeah. I learned that coming in. I thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting. Do the little kids, can they reach those upper ones?
They can, yeah. And when you think about it, our 5 sister schools of Woodstock, Oakwood, Diamond Ridge, et cetera, they all have the locker model. As an example, so does Neil Armstrong Academy, et cetera. So we have quite a few schools that are using the locker model, and we're not alone.
Okay, just wondered.
I just think they are so positive at Oakwood and Woodstock when I'm there. I mean, I'm mostly at Oakwood, but when I see them, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I wish every school had these. They're really great.
I guess I got to be honest. I guess I've never noticed them when I've walked through Diamond Ridge. So, because that has never come up. Interesting. Okay.
Any questions kind of on the Truman side, finishing that up? Concerns or reasons with the change order? Okay, very good.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Cypress High School, as you well know, and thank you for those who attended, is under a tremendous amount of work right now. And thank goodness that we, in this current lovely day that we're having today, that so much of the work is going on inside the envelope and completing of that. For those of you who had the opportunity to take the tour, you can see that quite a bit of the administration and academic buildings, and certainly the Performing Arts Center, are all moving very quickly right now. And so we're very excited about the progress right there. The wood paneling at the auditorium, for those who had the opportunity to see that. The HVAC and the metal panels and the tile are all being installed. We can just quickly scroll through these to get to some of the things. As you can see, quite a bit of site work. It was nice to see all of the grass that we're putting on the side of the slope for erosion control. It's taken well root, and I think it's in a good position to stay throughout the winter time period. The gym floor, the wood floor going down, the HVAC units, completing that, and all of the rest of the work. Westland's teams and their subcontractors are performing at a very high level right now in order to complete the work. The wood paneling up on the wall, for those of you who saw it, and I didn't include any pictures of any board members hugging cabinets or anything in the in the board presentation. So
Thank you.
the orchestra pit infrastructure being installed, and the work on site is performing at a very high level right now. So we're appreciative to Westland and the trade partners for that work. The one change that we have before you, part of the conversations we had at the end of the project was the coordination with the existing staff in terms of meeting some of those teacher requests. This was actually the change that related to meetings that were held back in January with the existing staff and the presentations we had on the boarding, and particularly related to many of the concerns with equipment to some of the programs that are specific to Cypress High School. And so there were some additional power requirements and some building configuration changes that were made in the graphics lab in particular in order to accommodate the program and the equipment that they have there. There was a transaction window that was added as part of this, kind of lumped in quite a few flooring changes to accommodate the much larger CTE program components that are part of Cypress High School. And we feel like this captured a lot of those requirements that are specific to the Cypress teacher requirements, and so that's why we are recommending that these be incorporated in the building as soon as possible in order for Westland to complete the school on time. I'm happy to take any questions related to this change, but this change actually went through several configurations and repricings in order to mitigate the costs and making sure that we were capturing the essential items only that needed to be. There was a large number of requests, but the ones that were related to the curriculum and the functionality of the room were the ones that ended up being incorporated. Is that a fair statement, Justin, in terms of capturing that cost? And we have vetted the cost repeatedly with Westland and their subcontractors. We BDK recommend approval because we believe it captures those. Going on to Skyline High School, academic punch list, there's still some items that are doing that. The tilt panels, if you've seen on the performing arts, we're starting to work on that. The orchestra exterior foundation walls, footings and foundations throughout the underground conduit banks. It doesn't quite look like a building yet, but it's getting there. It's as you can see, some of the tilt walls for the performing arts section and the last wing of the academic building that's part of this section. You can see the orchestra pit standing all by itself. For those of you who are on the tour, you can imagine the whole rest of the performing arts building being built around the deepest section of the performing arts building. And I know we've shown like 6 pictures of the orchestra pit, but we have to show some kind of vertical completion as opposed to the massive amounts of electrical and to service the building. And for those of you, once again, who saw the auditorium, it is an amazing structure. So the one here is going to be equally much so. And you can see we've already got some of the HVAC areas and plenums and plumbing throughout the building. Over the next while, it will continue to rise up out of the ground with the tilts. So this was probably one of my funnest pictures. This was taken by a member of the staff for the testing centers. These 2 model schools are rather unique in these testing centers that you've designed in. But as you can see, they're in full use. This was for the PSAT, I believe, for the sophomores. And it was the teacher who was administering the test was just so absolutely excited to be able to show that these testing centers were functioning as designed. And then we do not believe we have any changes to bring before the board for Skyline.
So I have an item I'd like to ask you about that relates to Cypress and Skyline both. And I guess anyone on this side who wants to answer as well is welcome to. I want to ask about the construction of the group restrooms in both buildings. Because I guess to be straight to the point, feel like that's something that we as a board should look at adjusting. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but just for those listening, I want to give a brief description of what the group restrooms are. And that's basically a bathroom model that we intend to use for all students regardless of gender, thus with the term group. I wish we had a picture of it in here, but we don't. So just, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that generally speaking, and in all cases in both schools, the design is a wall that turns into a window halfway up above the level of the sinks. We have 2 entrances, one on each end, and we have a row of stalls. I'm thinking from the pictures I've seen and from being there, it's somewhere between 7 and 10 stalls in each restroom. And then the sinks on the inside of that wall that I mentioned, that exterior wall. So all stalls in these restrooms will have floor-to-ceiling walls and doors, and the individual stalls will be labeled as male or female. Is that an accurate description?
I think it's 13, but yes, I think it's 13 stalls. 2 of
Okay.
those are ADA for those that have a bigger need, a bigger stall.
Which computer is plugged in down there? Okay, I'm going to send an email to that computer with a photo, a blow-up of the image. I don't know which one to send it to.
Send it to me, okay.
It's my understanding too that the ADA are also, because there's two of them, one will be designated female and one will be designated male. Isn't that what I think that's what it was intended.
The beautiful thing about that is it can be designated however we wish, right? It can ebb and flow as you. There are, I was going to say, there are family patron restrooms by the performing arts at both schools. So if grandma and grandpa, whoever comes to see a play or a production, there are family restrooms down in the main foyer to be used as well. So that probably would be primarily where most patrons would go if they come for an event in for the auditorium.
Couple of questions. So can you confirm, so are there other restrooms in the performing arts buildings that are gender specific as well? Or is it just the family ones and these group ones?
Yeah, as far as for the kiddos and for the students, it's that bank that I think you saw that you're referring to that we're trying to pull up here. Oh, there we go. There's a photo, or there's a floor plan. Those are the primary bathrooms on each floor. They're stacked. They're on top of each other all the way up the top of the building.
Okay. Will there be teachers policing the bathroom to prevent females from using male stalls or vice versa? Is that the intent at all?
That would be an administrative question, and I don't want to put that question on to Justin. We do have a protocol and a policy of how we supervise our restroom spaces and in compliance with state statute, and that policy would be expected to be adhered to by our administrators. The intent of this design is to help facilitate that and make sure that our students are safe when they're using the restroom.
I guess the point of that question was I would submit that, you know, if there's, just an example, 5 female restroom stalls and, 7 females in the restroom who need to go really badly, and there happen to be no males in the bathroom at the time, I'm fairly certain that they would simply go ahead and use the male stalls. I think that happens, right, commonly in all kinds of places. So my point is what purpose the designation serves. Why are we labeling male and female when chances are good it's not really going to matter that much?
I think it's important, and I can appreciate the concern. So I appreciate the chance to respond to this. I think this restroom design is intended to meet several safety issues that we have seen a rise and increase of with respect to, and so the designation of actual stalls for genders is important, and by virtue of the fact, despite the fact that Julie Jackson tells me that when she goes to the Maverick and the women's restroom's full, she goes to the men's restroom.
That was confidential.
Oh, so forget I just said that. But, so to your point, can we monitor that space 100% of the time? No, but we do have cameras that help facilitate to provide protection. So if someone were to do some damage to the restroom space or the stall, we'd be able to identify who came out of that restroom stall with the camera that's in the hallway space that's facing into that area, right? So it's not removing people's privacy, but it does allow us to protect property, which we've seen a rise and increase of with TikTok challenges and other concerns. My concern with not labeling those gender specific is that we do see female students who would be unwilling to use, in particular, a single stalled unisex family type stall because frankly, boys used it and boys are messy. And that is just one component of that. And for the record, I'm not messy. I'm very clean. But I can also see, I've had this conversation with my wife and with students, frankly. The challenge that we see more and more with cyberbullying, with the rise of social media, despite the fact that we banned cell phones in schools, they can still use them in a secondary school during passing time. We continue to see students filming each other's shoes while they're using the restroom stall in a traditional gendered restroom stall space. So this kind of helps work to address a number of those bullying type, cyberbullying type issues that we do see. We have students that are afraid to just simply use the restroom because they know they'll be harassed for whatever reason. And so this is simply on every floor to provide a common space area that we can better monitor and provide supervision for. And at the same time, we do have a traditional restroom space just down the hall from this on the other side of the building. So one's on the academic performing wings. I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
Performing arts.
The performing arts wing, and the other side, we just saw the picture of the testing center that's on the other side of that hallway space, and that is where the traditional restrooms are. So that literally outside of that testing center is the traditional restroom space that are commonplace.
Kim, I don't know if it would be helpful. I happened to be in Portland 3 weeks ago for a national conference for architecture for learning environments, and I specifically signed up for the class about restrooms because I'm just curious what other districts and what other architects all over the country are doing. And essentially this plan, not by us, but by a different firm out of Minneapolis, was presented, and everybody in the room that isn't doing this was 100% on board with doing it going forward because of safety. That's the number one thing that people are saying. It's safer for kiddos to find a space where bullying is next to zero, if not zero. Sarah out at Westlake could give you information, maybe visit with her. She's had these restrooms. There's fewer of them, but she's had those out there. So I'll just say that the country is moving this direction because of the safety of kiddos. And I think we'll have a great study to see over time where kids prefer, where they're safe, where they feel safer, where they feel like they prefer to go.
I think we do need to be dynamic in that way and continue to monitor what our kids are doing and the types of behaviors that we continue to see. To your point, and I want to acknowledge it fully, we don't have the manpower to have somebody sitting there 100% of the time. If teachers are out of their spaces during passing times, we would expect that we would be able to provide a lot of supervision to this space. And again, cameras would be in strategic locations to be able to monitor that as well. But I frankly have heard it from Dr. Nye, and now as superintendent for the last 3 months, have heard from students who are walking over to the seminary building because they don't feel safe using the traditional spaces that's not to speak for the majority of students, but it does speak to a number of our students, and it has nothing to do with some of the social issues that we're seeing here. It has everything to do with just, I want to use the restroom and I need a private space to do it, and I don't feel comfortable in a traditional restroom space.
To be clear, though, thank you for that, and I appreciate you bringing up Westlake. Westlake has a model with a glass wall. Westlake does not have a group restroom that is male-female combined in one. So the model itself, yeah, I can see how that addresses behavior concerns. My question then to you is how not putting a wall in between and having a female space on one side and male on the other side. Why is that necessary to have a joint combined restroom to address safety issues? From my perspective, it doesn't affect that at all. We achieve the same end goal with this model, even if we had separated into two gender-specific areas.
I'll take this one too, and feel free to chime in, because I was part of those initial conversations when this was adopted and changed. So I'm not speaking in favor of I'm just speaking to this specific design and why it was laid out this way. If you can see on the bottom portion, I believe that's glass to be able to look in, and that is a corner. Is that correct, Justin? So the intent is that an administrator could, or another adult, could actually stand on that corner, even go down that hallway a little bit, still look all the way across the restroom space throughout the whole common spot where the sinks are, and still be able to provide supervision while looking down that hallway and looking down that hallway. So it's just a very strategic desire to look at the restroom space, but still monitor two major corridors for any challenges or difficulties with students. I believe that was the intent and why that was not a dividing space. To that end, I know the conversation came up because we do have a comparable design. It's kind of a mix, I would call it a hybrid, in most of our new elementary schools, really since the 90s. I saw it again today at two of the elementary schools I was in, where the restrooms themselves are more traditional. They go around a barrier and It's a traditional restroom space, but that common space where they wash their hands, the mirrors are at, where the soap and the trash cans is all shared between the respective genders. So I think to some degree the designers probably looked at that, saw a concept that worked, and probably, let's try that here and see how that works. I'm surmising, but that was my understanding given the history on this. Did I miss anything?
I was just going to add one thing, and that was the window that you pointed out, Ben, Superintendent. At one point, we played with that being open so that you would have access to there, but then we thought high school kids pushing each other, that might become, congested, and so we thought, let's don't open that up for physically walking through that space, but having a window there so you can see through that space.
And it's my understanding too, even the sinks, there's glass there and you can still look into the restroom space. So there are no mirrors. You're washing your hands, you're looking into the hallway and they're looking at you. I would say, sorry, I know you keep grabbing your mic and I didn't mean to cut you off. Frankly speaking, I walk around most of our high schools, they've removed the doors from the restroom spaces because we simply, our older designs do not facilitate the rise in difficulties that our students are experiencing in terms of trying to have a private space to use the restroom. And so we don't have mirrors in restrooms anymore. Sometimes we may not have towels to dry off on because of the vandalism that's occurring. And so I'm sensitive to a variety of concerns with respect to this, but I can appreciate the concern that you presented.
Thanks, Ben. I would submit then that I still believe having the glass windows there helps with that safety issue. I think maybe that window on the side is an added plus, but it's not necessary. We have other designs out there that don't have that, right? So my ask, I guess, is for the board to consider. I know we can't take any action, and I'm not asking for that tonight, but we don't have a whole lot of time if action were to be taken, that we consider adjusting these plans to keep our restrooms gender specific. I think that creating these joint restroom spaces is crossing a line that I don't feel should be crossed. I don't feel it's appropriate that we should be combining restroom spaces. I appreciate that the stalls are labeled individually, but it's the restroom as a whole that now, to me, it feels like, one of the intents of this is so that kids become used to the setup of using restrooms together. And so that's my ask of the board. If you have your thoughts, feel free to share. I just feel like girls and boys are different, right? The behavioral issues are different. Their concerns are different. Their privacy needs are different. I don't feel like it's doing our duty in protecting our girls in putting them in a position where they now have to begin sharing restroom spaces.
May I ask, is there any other reason in addition to the one that you described of kind of a human capital or human resource issue of being able to maximize the utilization of an administrator or a teacher to be able to look down those various corridors and at the restroom? Is there anything beyond that this design accomplishes or is intended to accomplish versus placing that wall between the two genders?
I'm looking to our design folks and any guidance you may have received administratively on this design prior to my involvement, but my understanding this was strictly a supervisory intended design, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm not intending to diminish that that advantage, if you will, but I'm curious if there's anything else that we should be aware of.
And speaking maybe to the issues learned in events like Portland and other locations, when designers speak to the efficacy of safety in this layout, these really are, to a degree, widely viewable by everyone in a hallway, be it an administrator or others. And that visibility, that transparency to the, I'm going to call it the washroom side, right, the hand washing side, has a tendency to curb behaviors, be it vandalism, bullying, etc. So you don't necessarily always have to have an adult present to help shape behaviors. As the superintendent mentioned, the cameras as well, that will be, it's widely known that cameras are in hallways, and that helps to curb behaviors. The full enclosure of the restrooms, as the superintendent spoke to, is the extra added measure that I believe studies have found that adds comfort to an individual who's in there. It's not a foot and a half off the floor where a camera can be slid in or where noises and smells and other things are shared more openly. That's what the designers are intuiting to us in their concepts.
Sure, I get all that. I'm just exclusively looking at the vantage point issue. So you have all of that if you still put a wall up, other than you can't see all the way across to both genders. So I'm really trying to hone in on just that one portion of the issue.
I can't think of another issue. These were put on the corner for a reason.
And are there cameras on both ends?
Opposite sides of the hallway, so it's caught in the camera's periphery. It's not trained on it, but it's part of a camera view.
On both ends of the restroom?
I would have to look at a security camera layout. I can't confirm that.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident we have it in both directions. That's kind of an intersection, like Ben was saying, like Superintendent was saying, that's an intersection right there. So looking both ways, up and down, or in this case, along the bottom, you would have viewing. The cameras would catch that.
I think that one of the things that is really important to us in our schools is that we meet individual needs. And I think that one of the things we're learning that we haven't known in the past is that our kids have individual needs with their restroom use. And especially as technology comes around, we're seeing that different kids feel safe in different situations in the bathroom. And so I think that it's important for us to, I think this kind of bathroom exemplifies our vision that we want to meet individual needs and we want to treat kids as individual humans. And I also think it's important that we are innovative and that we don't just feel like whatever worked in the past will always work in the future. I think that's not the attitude that we can't have that attitude in our district. We just can't, because we're going to get left behind, which I think we're already seeing ourselves get left behind in some areas. So I really support this idea. I don't see that I feel like the benefits outweigh the costs here. The cost is that we're doing something that we're not used to, or that we're making a change in culturally how we've done things. And to me, that is a benefit. I think that is a great thing for us to ask ourselves questions about how we're looking at things culturally. And as a person who has never been happy with my bathroom situation, I'm thrilled to see that somebody is looking for something else, as Ben indicated about the Maverick. So I am thrilled to see that there are some discussions about how can we make this so that it meets individual needs better. And I do not feel like it's a threat to anything. I feel like it's forward thinking, and I'm excited to find out. I think we're going to find, oh, this is the stuff that works, and maybe there's stuff over here to improve on the next building. Like, I think this will evolve, and I'm excited for the evolution. So I really support what we're doing here.
Maybe I'm stating the obvious, but this is more for me to confirm in my own mind. This is the one and only version of this restroom on the campus.
There's 3 floors.
There's 3 floors. Each floor has it, but there are multiple versions of what I would call a traditional restroom, as well as the individual family restrooms that are available. So there are options that are available to many.
So to be clear, one of these would be designated family. The rest would be gendered.
You're saying one of the stalls, maybe the ADA stall, we certainly could do that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're all stacked. So these are all stacked, and then the traditional style are all stacked as well, on each floor.
And not to belabor the point, but my concern with this design at this point is that effectively it will just become a male restroom for the reasons that have already been expressed. That as soon as a male can't get into one of the male stalls, they will use one of the other stalls, and then it no longer is a female stall at that point, and the females will not wish to use that stall. And
I think that's,
I worry of that
is-
concern anyway.
As Board Member Chandler has pointed out, I would just like to reiterate that that is something we should continue to monitor and figure out if this is an effective design or not. At the same time, we may find that students are unwilling to use this space for a variety of reasons, that being one of them. And if this isn't working out the way that we intended, then we should come back to the drawing board and look at some other options. So, hey, we're just trying something new here because we have a need, right? And so I'm not sure, had we come back a while back and looked at potentially putting a wall down here as a divider, and how big of an issue that would have been, I don't think that would have necessarily been a deal breaker at that time. It wasn't thought of at that point in time as such. And but we are far enough along in this construction project, particularly at Cypress, that to go back at this point in time, I'm assuming that cost would be just as much as renovating it after the fact to some degree. What do you think, Justin, Don?
Yeah, I don't know that it would be just as much, but there would be definitely a cost. There's going to be a time element to it, which I know Westland has been pushing, as Chris said. This would slow them down a bit, so there's that element, and then there would be a little financial cost too. I don't know what that would look like right now, but there would be something. Chris did, sorry, I was just going to say, Chris did point out that he worked with other districts, and this is also something that other districts are wrestling with and seem to be using as well.
Right, there's a few other school districts that BDK is working with, and this is actually the model that they're modeling it on because they feel like it meets some of the legislative requirements. And also, I think their biggest concern that, once again, that was brought up again was a supervisory issue in terms of that seemed to be the model that some of the designs we're currently working on are actually based upon the model that you guys are pioneering, so to speak.
I just wanted to say for the record that I think there's a group of girls in every school who will go in and defend their territory. Like, because Clark was saying, I think there will be some girls saying, hey, you're out of there. That's not your bathroom.
I just want to make one comment. I think the placement of these restrooms is really important also because it's more in the performing arts and some common areas where a lot of families come for different purposes. And why I appreciate Kim's, point that they could be misused in the wrong way. I also think that for families, if I'm bringing my kids to a play at the school or something similar, it would be really nice to be able to say, you go in here, you go in here. I can see where they're at. I don't have to walk or wait by the bathroom door and be like, anybody in there? Because I've done that many times with my kids, and I feel like this is a great opportunity to kind of go, oh, you can use this stall, you can use this stall. And I, as a parent, can supervise that too and see when they come out and kind of have I've had to send my boys in the restrooms before, and I don't love that when I was, without my husband or something, or vice versa. When he had my daughter, it's like, cover your eyes, hurry, I'm gonna take you in this other restroom. So I kind of feel like this could serve a purpose, and the placement of these ones are in more of some of our school areas where maybe families are gonna be. And so I'm really interested to see how this gets used in our schools. And I like that this isn't the model the whole school will have. This is three of these that are in a certain area, and then we still have the traditional options for our students who that's the comfort level for them. So I can appreciate both designs.
Sorry, if you we're going to jump in. I have one other thing when you're done.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, I was in the room when Dr. and I shared some of these updates with the board members who were impacted in board leadership a few years ago. We're open to the advice, and this is kind of an administrative decision, but I want to make sure that the board is comfortable with the direction that we're moving in, and if adjustments need to be made, that we can move forward with that.
If I can just add real quick, I appreciate your point, Chris. I do think, though, that Steve said we already have family restrooms near the auditorium and right, we already have those there. So I do think they have another option. I think it would be money and time well spent at Cypress. At Skyline, we're not too far along, right? I mean, the walls are just being raised for that building. So that's one that shouldn't have much expense, if any, to edit. Real quick, I will point out, I think that the floor-to-ceiling restrooms exchange one set of behavior issues for another. You kind of pick your poison there. And I just also want to add, I'm not sure that this design and this plan is transparent, or that a lot of our, maybe not transparent is the wrong way to say it, but I'm not sure that a lot of our community members are aware of it. And I do feel like personally, this is something I want to make sure my constituents do know about. And so that is something I plan to also work on in the coming days. So just to make everyone aware of that. But that's all. Sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, no, I was just going to, any rough estimates on what a change order would look like? Design fees, study on don't we have to conduct some sort of study to ensure that the amount of sink space per restroom stalls meets code, something to that effect?
We've already started some informal studies on the issue. And there are hard wall concepts, partition concepts, et cetera. The fixture count probably can make it by code if we're removing one. If you remove many for ADA, we start to have a fixture count problem. And so how clever we are, I think, could change our per restroom cost. Partitions, you're probably, and in a public meeting, you're asking us to do quickly.
Well, I'm just asking you to start looking at that, and we can provide that number.
We have some studies. I would expect any change order range to be 20 to 50 per set of restrooms.
Okay. We'll get a firm number in place, a better estimate, and share that with the board once we have that information.
Per set at Cypress, or at both is what you're saying, Don?
Say that again, please.
Are you estimating that for just Cypress?
Meaning, I'll expand on your question.
Yeah, the unbuilt Skyline could see half that cost.
Because the build hasn't, we don't have walls up already.
Per restroom, per floor?
Per restroom, per floor.
Does the board want to see those numbers? I know that at Skyline, my community wants these bathrooms. If we didn't have these bathrooms, my community would be upset. And so I will defend them. I will say I will not support taking them out of my school.
Well, and you bring up, that's why I was pulling down my mic, Julie, is that's great. You know, Kim has asked us if we're willing to look into this. There can be some legwork done. However, my question to the board is, do we want that legwork done? Because I personally am fine with the current model. Kim, you just said it yourself, there are other options. If people are not comfortable using those particular restrooms, there are the traditional restrooms elsewhere. We're not forcing, this is not the only option when you're using a restroom. If you feel more comfortable, by all means, walk down a little further in the hall and use those. So me personally, I don't think we need to invest the time to look at pricing and to redo it, because I'm not going to support a change anyway. So that's kind of where I want to almost just kind of ask the board, do we want these guys to look into this? Are you feeling like you want to support it? Because if you're like me, you're not going to support a change anyway. I think it's a waste of our kind of your time if we're not going to support it anyway, if that makes any sense. So I know, Julie, you're not going to support a change. I'm not going to support a change. Just, we haven't heard from everybody. I'm just curious, you need 4.
And it's back to what I've been trying to continue to say, that I want us to focus our time and resources on literacy. End of story. And so I feel like this is a distraction also, you know?
So maybe I am just not visualizing the picture right. So the way you have it, though, is one half is going to be for girls and the other half is going to be for boys. And that's where it's designated on there, on the doors, that half of it's for girls. Okay, so really, I'm okay as long as that's the designation, that the students understand that this is what we've made for girls and this is what we made for boys. Okay, thank you.
And the two stalls in the middle are the ADA, which would be one for male, one for
Yeah,
female.
they're the bigger
also,
ones,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think I'm reading it correctly, that is it the upper half are meant for boys? Go ahead.
We were just, there's an odd number, and so we were definitely going to give the bigger number to the girls and the smaller amount to the boys. However that shakes out, you're right, the upper half, I think, is the bigger portion, the more stalls.
Just to be clear on the ADA, because we've said two different things. Is it going to be one labeled male, one labeled female, or is there going to be one family?
My understanding was one of them would be designated for a gender and the other would be for family as an ADA stall.
We could do whatever. I mean, it's a sign.
It's a nameplate.
Yeah, I mean, that's administrative, really,
Yeah.
in the end. I mean, and, you know,
And
as
maybe
they
it
look at
fluctuates
it,
floor to floor.
they could say, oh my gosh, we need something
Yeah.
different, and they could change it because
You're
we
right,
would
it could
want them
change by
to.
floor too. Lots of
Yeah.
options.
Not to belabor the point, but really, are there enough of us in support to keep pursuing even this conversation, or are we okay with as it is?
It seems to me like there's not enough support of that to pursue it. My personal feeling is that, especially according to the law, restroom is defined as the space with the toilet, and once you exit that area, you are out of that restroom space. And the sinks are, you know, there's no expectation of privacy there. Many schools, my school included, has, you know, if I'm out of soap, we run across the hall to the boys and it's outside in the hallway. So there's no expectation of privacy. And if there is, I guess I'm not understanding where, if the stalls themselves are designated, if that's to me is privacy, and then outside in the hallway, I mean, we could have the sinks across the hallway, and I think it would be the same thing. So I would not, and quite frankly, being Taylorsville being the next one on the remodel list, I would not support a change order at this point, because every penny counts, so.
I just say thanks for the cameras. I think that, especially for the destruction that has gone on, kudos. We need
I had another question about Skyline, but I want to make sure we're finished here.
I think, it sounds like we're okay with that.
Could I just make a quick point that we'll continue to monitor this administratively? If we see issues, then we're very open to addressing those concerns at that point in time.
Chris, you and I had a conversation about, but I can't remember it and wanted you to re-say it. The punch list at Skyline. You started with, when we started the year, there was like 3,000 items on that punch list. Am I correct on that, 3,000-ish?
There were roughly.
And where are we now?
There were roughly 3,000 back in May, June time period. And we're under, I believe, 600 currently, and most of those are paint. I believe the number's between 600 and 700. What? Oh, and we do have some AV corrections that we're doing as part of that. That's probably the most intrusive fixes. Most of the rest of them, I think, are from a cosmetic standpoint. And once again, just reiterating how much effort the district IT made in order to, in addition to all the other district staff in terms of the reloads and stuff, but the district IT really came through in order to make that school operational. But we're about, I would say we're roughly probably about a fifth left of the original list. And some of those are some AV issues that we've been working on the last few weeks, but most of the rest of them are paint, cosmetic, and other touch-up items.
Do we have any sense of when we'll be out of there?
I would like to say by the end of the academic year, the AV issues will probably linger because there are some reconfigurations, and we're actually carrying those forward over to Cypress right now as well. And these relate to, in the academic wing, in the pods, there's a primary teacher station and there's a secondary teacher station. And the preference in each space is teacher-driven. And some of those locations are a little far away from where people are doing their desk, and it's partially how the room is laid out, because the room shapes are different as you go around the pod configuration. So those probably are going to linger a little longer than the rest of the completion items, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
I hope that was
No,
clear.
that
was
sets
clear enough.
expectations, so that's
Yes,
good. Thank you.
Is that fair, Justin?
Okay, next.
We need to go into executive session here, so can we just be as prompt as possible, like speed, like 2 times?
You don't have to tell me twice.
We're good on, okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Actually, Chris, hang out for just 1 second. Chris and Justin, after we go into, because I have a question for you. All right, we have need of an executive session for the purpose of safety and security. And to that end, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of safety and security.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of safety and security. This is a roll call vote. Please state your name and your vote. Julie, go ahead first.
Julie Jackson, yes.
Kim Chandler, yes.
Connie Burgess, yes.
Chris Wynn, yes.
Karen Winder, yes?
Clark Nelson, yes.
Nicole McDermott, yes. We will convene up in the 216 conference